Hello, friends, and welcome to a live edition of Syracuse Sports. This is Syracuse football postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics, as the Orange picks up its first ever win in Death Valley, taking down Clemson today by a final score of 34-21. You got Brent Axe, you got Javon Edmonds live in Death Valley. Long day, as this game included a long weather delay right at halftime. Lightning in the area kept this one a little longer than usual, but it was worth the wait for Syracuse, but came at a cost as quarterback Steve Angeli is out for a considerable amount of time. We will get the update on that and much more here as we go through this game. But Javon, I'm going to start with this here. Our friend LL Cool J once saying, don't call it a comeback, right? Uncle Brent's going to spit some rhymes here to start the show. You ready?
Talk to me.
Don't call this an upset. This is not an upset. Syracuse was the better team on the field in all three phases today. Syracuse was not playing history. They got the historic win the first time they won in Death Valley. But if we're just talking about this game today on September 20th, 2025, Syracuse was the better team out there. They came in with the better record. They left with the better record. Clemson is a mess. I know there's going to be an extensive conversation in other areas about what's wrong with Clemson. I'll let the people that cover Clemson deal with that. Syracuse was the better team today. It's a significant win. I'm not taking away anything from the historical significance or the face value of it, what it means for the program. But if you're just looking at this matchup straight up today, that's not an upset. Syracuse was the better team on the field. What'd you see in Death Valley?
So I am a gambler, and Vegas tells me this was an upset. I'm glad no one asked me my opinion on this because so 17.5, I did say Syracuse would cover. But if someone would have asked me, should they have put, $20 on the plus $6,000 or whatever it was for Syracuse straight up on the money line, I would have said no. Brent, all of us made our predictions.
We did. I did pick Clemson. I did.
All of us picked Clemson. Fran Brown owns that over us for the rest of the week. I saw a team out there today that I voted top 10 in the preseason poll that you heard me rave about, saying could run through the ACC and get back to the national championship game. That they're done. I came into the season saying Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier, depending on the NFL draft order, were going to be the top two picks in April. I leave this game saying Cade Klubnik is not ready for the NFL. I leave this game saying he is this year's Carson Beck, in the sense of he might need to go somewhere else next year and rehab because he has not looked the part this year. Syracuse got to him, and it showed so much pressure. Now, granted, I'll give him credit for his elusiveness because he got away from a lot of sacks today. But you saw Syracuse is turning the corner on its pass rush, and it affected him to the point where he started missing wide open throws today. This is a Clemson team. I mean, Fran Brown's got something on Dabo Swinney right now. Like, hey, I'm the reason you got to Charlotte last year.
Yep.
And I'm the reason you're not going to go to Charlotte this year. Fran's the man in Death Valley right now.
He sure is. And look, Fran said it earlier this week that I'll take a low number of sacks. Syracuse only had one sack in this game if it means that Syracuse wins the game. And you said it. They flushed Cade Klubnik out of that pocket a lot. He's elusive. He got away from those sacks, but that pass rush was great for Syracuse today. All three phases great today. And, of course, the big move, Javon, the onside kick. Syracuse scores. They go for the onside kick. They only get a field goal out of it, but, man, to land that haymaker early in that match and send Clemson into the corner down 10-0. You send Willis with a huge 32-yard gain early in this game. Like, you could sense it early. Syracuse took the air out of the building and never quite let Clemson get it back.
You said haymaker. What did Fran say Monday? Vegas had Canelo favored.
That's right.
But Crawford said otherwise. I mean, so that's the other thing with the upset part. Like, that onside kick tells me Syracuse had a lot of respect for the team that Clemson was entering this game. And to be able to take that and go up 2 possessions before your defense sees the field and allow Elijah Robinson to be able to coach real freely from that point on was so significant. That is one of the moments of the game when, when you get 85 years old, Professor X, and you're talking to your grandkids about the time Syracuse finally beat Clemson in Death Valley. You're going to focus on that play when you're telling that story. That was so pivotal to the success of the team. And also, coming out of halftime, Syracuse could not allow Clemson to win the middle 8. So remember, Syracuse had forced a 3-and-out or something like that, had good field position and did nothing with it, punted. Clemson got the ball at the 8 and still drove 92 yards to get a touchdown, pretty much going into halftime. And that cut the lead to 10. And Syracuse could not allow Clemson to come out, get the ball first in the second half, and score again. And Syracuse got it stopped and went down and got a field goal afterwards. Those were the most pivotal parts of the game in my eye. That onside kick and then the back half of the middle 8, not allowing Clemson to sweep it. Those are the two most significant factors in this game in terms of moments. In terms of just football and game planning, the way they used Devin Grant in a Kyle Hamilton-esque role today in that secondary, moving all around the box, the slot, back end, and really playing with Cade Klubnik's mind defensively. And then offensively being able to get the run game going and get into the no huddle. And really sat down this week and knew exactly how to pick Clemson apart. And it showed on the field.
There was a real balance between the run and the pass. I mean, it ended up being Syracuse had 278 passing yards, 155 on the ground, but for a while there was a balance there. Clemson couldn't really tell what Syracuse was going to do. Defensively, it was their best tackling game. You mentioned Devin Grant, who led the team with 10 tackles. I mean, they were stifling Clemson in the backfield, not letting them get by. Antoine Delorier, a huge turnover for Syracuse, but maybe kind of sort of Clemson was trying to get back in this thing. I think Syracuse had control the whole way, but he just took any air out of that sail when he did that. We mentioned how sharp they were on special teams, and there's some guys that certainly deserve some flowers for that, Javon, but we've got to get to the big story here, and that is Steve Angeli goes down third quarter. He's rolling right. The turf monster bites. It's a non-contact situation. He goes down, and you could tell something was wrong right away. He's reaching for his lower leg. He's got his hands on his helmet. Now, remember, he went down in the first quarter and limped a little bit, adding a big brace to his leg, but he came right back in the game, right? But this time, he couldn't get off the field with putting any pressure on his leg. He's on the sideline in the fourth quarter in crutches. Fran Brown characterizing this as that he could be out for weeks here, so we'll see what the official diagnosis is. I'm not Dr. Axe. It did look like an Achilles situation, but let's see what the official medical reports say. What did Fran Brown say in postgame, and what was some of the reaction in the postgame to not only Angeli's victory, but the mixed emotions from these players? Javon, I mean, they lost their leader, but they got a huge win at the same time. I mean, if there's anything that encapsulates football, I guess that's it.
So our Chris Carlson overheard Fran telling Syracuse's Matt Park that Steve's going to be out for quite some time. Fran told us in the scrum that it's going to be a few weeks. Ricky Collins kind of, and before we get into that, I feel like you and I are the perfect ones to have the host this podcast today, because you and I, probably out of everybody covering Syracuse, hammered home the most that we were going to see Ricky Collins this season, and that Syracuse would be smart to play Ricky Collins at some point this season. Some on that side of the argument were saying him to take over as starter, and some were on the other side, like me, saying no, but he's just got to see some snaps this year.
Yes.
This is not the way anyone wanted to see Ricky Collins get his opportunity, period. And Ricky said it himself. This is not the way he wanted it. Big story in the NFL last week was Shedeur Sanders not wanting to get drafted by the Ravens, and Cam Newton later revealed the Eagles, because Shedeur Sanders would have had to root for Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts to get injured. And he said, I've got too much respect for those guys to get there, get drafted by one of those teams and have to rely on that. And that's the case with Ricky Collins right now. This is not how he wanted to earn his opportunity. And he felt awful for Steve, but he said he had to snap out of it because his team needed him. And he had to bring home this win, and he had to go do it for his brother. So I mean, came in there, managed the clock, held onto the ball, didn't turn the ball over. His first pass was a touchdown. Justice Ross Simmons is up to 2 multi-touchdown games this season. But Syracuse is going to be without Steve Angeli for quite some time. I'm not going to speculate on the injury. But it is the Ricky Collins show from now on. And for the past 2 months, Fran, Miles White, Jeff Nixon, the whole staff's been telling us, hey, we feel like we got 2 quarterbacks.
One play away.
If Steve goes down, we feel like Ricky can come in and win us games. We keep telling him he's 1 play away. Well, guess what? That 1 play was today, and we're going to find out next week against Duke. Can they actually win some games?
Which, by the way,
is the starter.
As we talked about in the preseason, Javon, not only getting Ricky that experience, because that's been the norm here in Syracuse. Kyle McCord was an anomaly last year. He was the first quarterback that went start to finish in a season who had not been replaced either by injury or by performance since Ryan Nassib in 2012. The backup quarterback has played some kind of role for Syracuse football in the last decade plus now, and we're going to see that happen again with Ricky Collins. And it harpens back to what we talked about in the competition. This is why you get 2 quarterbacks. This is why you spend NIL money on 2 guys, one from Notre Dame, one from LSU. Let them compete. So you have 2 good quarterbacks in the room, not only if an injury happens and that 1 play away came to fruition today, but just if one falters and the other can come in and replace the quarterback. So that's where that investment hopefully will pay off for Syracuse. It's Ricky's team now, and we'll see how it is going forward. But you really got to feel for Angeli. Led the nation in passing coming into this game, was really getting into a groove. And now what we'll see, Javon, we have heard so many compliments, and they're deserved, for Jeff Nixon's offense, what kind of system that is. So how he makes that adjustment going forward to play to the strengths of Ricky Collins. Because, look, Steve Angeli, I think, proved out to be the better quarterback. Ricky Collins is the better athlete, and now is to grow into being the better quarterback. The reason, amongst others, that Steve won the job that we heard from a lot of people was that Ricky just threw more picks, some more turnovers, just wasn't quite as mature in the huddle, and just, you know, Steve had big game experience, and that paid out. Well, now Ricky's going to get that opportunity to catch up in all the things that Steve was complimented on while also showing what he can do on the field.
I would say this. So Steve Angeli entered this game as the leading passer in the nation, right? Kyle McCord set the ACC single-season passing yards record last season. Ricky Collins shows up for these next few weeks. Jeff Nixon will not be in Syracuse next season. Jeff Nixon will be getting the head coaching job. You know, Oklahoma State's probably going to be open. UCLA's open. Virginia Tech's open. You know, Jeff Nixon's going to find work somewhere next season.
They're going to be hard to resist. Yep. Javon, any other final thoughts there before we let you exit the press box and get back to work there? I mean, there was a long delay during this game. I don't know if you guys were playing cards up there in the press box waiting this thing out. And
eating hamburgers and hot dogs during that delay.
There you go, man. You know, free press box food. You got to love it. But that was a unique aspect of this game, and just some other things that will really grab you about this win as you get ready to do some more writing and head back to Syracuse tomorrow.
Jonte Cook. Fran Brown said he's not 100%, but mentally he is back to 100%. And we saw it today. 100-plus yards. He's very active in the offense. You could tell the last 2 weeks he was still banged up from the hit he took at not at Tennessee, in Atlanta against Tennessee. Matter of fact, I'm glad Fran Brown came out Thursday night and said, like, that game just was not a neutral site game. We've been saying it for weeks. The ACC got screwed over in the Aflac kickoff. There was a South Carolina crowd in the Virginia Tech game. There was a Tennessee crowd in the Syracuse game, and we all knew that's how it was going to be. So congrats to Fran for stepping up and saying that. But now Jonte Cook seems to be back and ready to make an impact, which they are going to need for conference play. So now you got 3 guys who can win one-on-one. Jonte Cook, Darryl Gill, and Justice Ross Simmons. And then Dan Villari is still doing his thing, eating up yardage across the middle. Syracuse's offense is not something I would want to scheme against as an opposing defensive coordinator. I'll tell you that much.
We love those receivers in camp, and we were asked what's the best position room. I just kept going back to those receivers. They kept popping, and I don't know, we could 2 weeks in a row. Could we have a pair of gloves coming from Randy Moss up to Syracuse? We saw the catch last week from Gill.
Not this week.
Justice Ross Simmons. That was a nice catch. Maybe not quite as good as Gill's against Colgate, but the fact is they've got 3 receivers, and we saw it today. Cook all over the field. That one touchdown that Justice Ross Simmons caught from Ricky Collins, which they did review, and I don't know, it was really close. I don't think there was it was inconclusive evidence to overturn it, but JRS, I don't even think knew the ball was coming his way. Turns around, there it is, makes the catch, makes the up the ladder catch. Darryl Gill continues to get open and make these catches. A little bit of a concern when Angeli was in, he had 5 passes tipped at the line.
Yeah.
So obviously he's going to be out for a while, but that's something Ricky Collins has to keep into consideration going forward. And he tends to throw on the run a little bit more and escape the pocket. And we'll see how that adjustment is made, as we said, at the quarterback position. But all told, Javon, this is why you come and cover Syracuse football, because you cover big wins and upsets, and you just never know what's going to happen on any given Saturday. It's not an upset, though. It's just a big win for Syracuse.
I have now witnessed in person 2 ACC firsts in my life. First sporting event I ever have a memory of going to, or maybe second, was the first time Morgan State had ever beaten Maryland in basketball, and now first time that Syracuse has gotten a win in Death Valley. I'm just an ACC historian, man.
You're the ACC rabbit's foot. You're the good luck charm here.
I'm the watcher.
Great job, my friend. Look forward to what Chris and yourself have coming left from here from Death Valley and cover a win for Syracuse. And we'll see you guys when you get back, and safe travels back up here to Central New York, my friend.
Absolutely. Brent, enjoy the podcast. Insiders, have fun with Uncle Brent here.
We got a lot of insider feedback coming, and we've got some more voicemails. Now, we've got a voicemail from Florida coming from somebody who, as you can see him right there, over here, my guy Rock and Ron. But we opened up the secret voicemail line, and you guys responded. So we're going to hear from more of our Syracuse Sports Insiders coming up. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider, let me remind you, means you get direct text message access to me any time, especially during games, especially during the wave of emotions that a Syracuse football game can bring. And boy, were you guys feeling it during this one, the ups and the downs, the injury. But man, they're about to pull off this win, and just everything that goes into a major game like this for Syracuse. Text me anytime. Your thoughts, your questions, your opinions, your thoughts on all matters of Syracuse sports, things you want us to ask players and coaches, just want to shoot the breeze and talk SU sports. That is what the Syracuse Sports Insider text line is for. We're going to go to our insiders here coming up to get your thoughts on this one. And like we said, only the insiders get the secret voicemail line, which we opened up, and we're going to hear those coming up here in a minute. So Javon hit on a lot of big things here, but I do want to emphasize that this was not an upset. Okay. I think by a lot of definitions, some people will characterize it as that. If you factor history in and what Clemson football is, what their brand name is, I get all that. But in the here and now today, Syracuse was the best coach team, more prepared team. They ran it down Clemson's throat. And I'll tell you what, the two things that I had big questions coming into this game about were, could Syracuse hold the line of scrimmage, and the defense? The defense had been leaky so far this year. Let's be honest. We had seen this defense miss some tackles. They weren't getting up. They had only 3 sacks coming into this game. But again, as Fran characterized it, and good on him for saying this, I don't care if we don't, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I don't care if we don't get a lot of sacks as long as we win. The defense made a difference today. The open field tackling is the best Syracuse has done all year, by far, against Clemson. They knew where Clemson was going. As Javon pointed out, they had Devin Grant up high. He's got to get that Baltimore Ravens reference in there, even though the Bills knocked him off in week 1, right? But he was up high. Klubnik didn't know what to do. Klubnik's not an NFL quarterback right now. Just now, he has fallen down the ladder so much here. This is the first time, by the way, that Dabo Swinney, and remember his press conference from earlier this week? First time he's 1-3 as the coach at Clemson. So they have their own problems here. I think that's a fair question to say, what's wrong with Clemson? Because they've never been this bad at this point under Dabo, and they've got Klubnik. They've got a great running back. They've got 4 guys on that defense. Maybe I'm even underestimating, but certainly 4 guys that have NFL draft grades for this upcoming draft, right? That's Clemson. They get the best of the best every year. 8 of the last 10, as Dabo was ranting about this week, conference championships and everything that comes with that. But today, Syracuse ruled the trenches. That is the best I've seen the Syracuse offensive line play collectively. What's the last time you saw them play that well in a game of this magnitude, right? They pushed Clemson around all day. We had Eric McLean on the pod earlier this week, former Clemson offensive lineman, who was really in his feelings about the struggles that Clemson had had. I wonder how my guy Mac's doing right now after this loss. But that's the thing that befuddled him the most, was how Clemson could get pushed around and controlled. It's one thing for that to happen against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech does that to everybody. Syracuse had not shown this year, even with some of the big bodies they have on that offensive line, some of the transfers that they brought in from Bertrand from Alabama, TJ Ferguson from Florida State, go up and down the line, the guys that came back, Austin Collins from Louisville. Syracuse had just not start to finish in a game. They certainly have had their moments where they've done this, controlled the line of scrimmage. They did that for 4 quarters today. While Angeli had 5 passes batted at the line of scrimmage, the pass rush wasn't there, right? The injury came on a scramble where he was looking to just kind of get out of trouble and throw the ball, and the turf monster bit him. But at no time are you watching this Clemson defense saying, man, they're dominating. Yasin Willis goes out there and runs for, 94 yards on the day, 18 carries, 94 yards. And I'll tell you what, that first sign, when you're saying to yourself something could happen here, is when he went on that 32-yard run early in the game. Think of the tone you're setting and some of the problems we had heard about what Clemson was going through this year. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Syracuse, but Clemson had its fair share of issues this year. But you go back early in the game, and Yasin Willis is busting out a 32-yard gain. Syracuse, I think by halftime, my numbers might be off 1 or 2 here, but I believe and that 32-yard gain was one of the first plays of the game. It was the longest run from scrimmage Syracuse had this year. So right out of the gate, bam, you're delivering a punch to that Clemson defense. They score. The onside kick, I love it. I mean, how could you not love that play? You're catching Clemson napping. You're already taking air out of the sails. Special teams has been an outright disaster for Syracuse. But this year, you got to give credit where it's due. They've cleaned up. Ricky Brumfeld and company have cleaned up these special teams. The onside kick was beautifully orchestrated. I know Chris Carlson's going to write about that a little bit more and how that came about. And, Fran trusts his guys. If you're feeling it and it's there, do it. That's how you have to win games like this. You got to surprise the other team. You got to throw some things at them that they're not expecting and take the crowd out of the game, which not only did Syracuse did early, the long weather delay, you come back, it's nowhere near the crowd that it was. And that was already a crowd that was on the fritz as it was because all the Clemson fans were up in arms about what this program is right now. But Willis running the football. Nixon ate a little bit today, had a 9-yard touchdown run, and what he finished with 10 carries for 46 yards, right? Angeli slinging the ball over the place. Jonte Cook, and there's a couple NFL graded guys in that secondary, couldn't keep up with him. And that's not even a Jonte Cook at 100%. But he was breaking away from the secondary all day, right? Syracuse looked like the better team on offense. They controlled the line of scrimmage. And you flip the script to the defense. The defense has had its issues this year. A lot of our insiders and pod watchers and listeners and just Syracuse fans in general are kind of starting to wonder, what kind of defense is this? What's Elijah Robinson doing? And they still have to prove themselves over the long haul. But they were as sharp as I have seen that defense under Fran Brown. The tackling, the open field tackling, sniffing out plays, getting there, flushing out Klubnik. I mean, we mentioned a few guys that got their shout-outs today. Grant was unbelievable. Remember, banged up this year, just getting back healthy. 10 tackles, 2 for loss, all over the place. Probably should have had an interception in the end zone as well, but still broke up the play. How about Raheem Long, who had a pretty bad penalty, unfortunately, as he's kind of learning his way, but he has 8 tackles. He was all over the ball today, knew where to be and how to do it. Cornell Perry holding his own out there with 7 tackles. Demetrius Samuel Jr. continues to prove that he belongs on the field. As the second youngest player in college football, came in as one of the nation's leaders in pass breakups. Did it again today. A couple of great plays on who Eric McLean called one of the best Clemson receiving groups he's ever seen. Antonio Williams back from injury today. Clemson was getting their guys back. You would think it would spark them back at home after Dabo's rant earlier this week. If anything, they got worse. If anything, the hole opened up more and Clemson fell deeper into it today. And again, that is a credit to Syracuse. Clemson's got its own issues. I'll let them figure it out. But that is a credit to Syracuse, who played its best 3-way game. Offense, defense, special teams. Considering the circumstances, what's the comparison you want to make here? Because sometimes you have to kind of jerry-rig a game and maybe win with the offense, but the defense is bad. And Syracuse had to win many games last year with its special teams having an awful season. UNLV in particular. They had 2 punts blocked in that game last year, right? To do this at Clemson, I have to discipline myself. I have to keep saying it. Do not call this an upset. It's not an upset if you just look at these two teams as it stands in 2025. If you want to factor in history and everything else, maybe you can call it that. And it's their first win ever in Death Valley. It's a landmark win. It's historic. You can come up with a lot of ways to describe this thing. Just do not call it an upset, right? But now you got to make a quarterback change. And I know that people want to celebrate this, but listen, Jeff Nixon has to make some adjustments. You cannot run this offense the same way with Ricky Collins, the same way that Steve Angeli was starting to get into a rhythm. If anything, Ricky's got great receivers. He's just got to get the timing with these guys, right? You got a Duke team sold out, JMA Wireless Dome on Parents Weekend, another noon game, unfortunately. They've been docking Syracuse a lot of these noon games this year. But you got some momentum coming into that game and a crowd behind you, some great receivers, and an offensive line coming off one of its best performances of the year, and a great running game. So what you have to do if you're Jeff Nixon is keep it simple for Ricky. Ricky's got to go out and make throws and make plays like Angeli has to, and ultimately it all comes back to the quarterback. But Ricky Collins, with his mobility and some athletic things that Angeli doesn't bring to the table, right? Angeli better quarterback, Collins better athlete. And if the competition was truly that close in camp, what Ricky Collins walks into right now is a pretty darn good offense with one of the best offensive coordinators in college football. I think we can say that now. As Javon brought up earlier, the unfortunate thing is it's going to be really hard for Syracuse to keep Jeff Nixon around with all the jobs that are going to open up in college football, the reputation he's gaining. And if you could take Ricky Collins and keep this thing humming, good luck, right? You can't keep that guy around. So you got to enjoy it while you can here. But Jeff Nixon's got a bit of a challenge here and an adjustment to make. But if it was as close as he said between Angeli and Collins, then I'm not saying he's going to step right in there and just keep this thing on an even keel. There's going to be an adjustment. But if Ricky is truly that talented, there are some things they can do and use to their advantage there. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders were fired up today. We opened up the secret voicemail line. Without further ado, let's hear from you guys on, don't call it an upset, on this big win for Syracuse today. Lacey calls it this. It is epic. That is all. Tell Brian we said hello, Lacey. From Timmy C, who says, Ricky Collins is now the guy. As John Madden used to tell the Raiders, don't worry about the horses being blind. Just load the wagon and let's go. From Eddie P, who says, the offense had a terrific mix of run and pass today, and Jelly will be missed, hopefully not for too long, but it's reassuring that Collins could take over the reins and do what's needed to be done to preserve the win. He also notes this, the defense came up with its best tackling effort of the year, special teams, onside kick, field goal, 49-yard field goal for Trip Woody, by the way. And Syracuse needed to put those points on the board and take control of this thing. With Stonehouse, you're flipping the field. You have one of the best punters in college football. He's up there at the top of the list nationally as well right now. For my guy, Mike V, what an enjoyable day here at Clemson. He was there. A shout out to Ben and a few of our other insiders. A shout out to Joe and some guys that were there at Death Valley. Got to experience that today. Appreciate you guys checking in with your photos and what was happening down there at Death Valley during the weather delay. We were all trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and our insiders were so helpful for that today. Mikey V adds the punch-out fumble followed by Ricky Collins' dart to JRS swung the game hard when the chips were down. And that was Antoine Delorier. Guys, I mean, every time Antoine Delorier makes a play, I just hear the Ultimate Warrior theme music in my head. Right? And the warrior running into the ring. I just can't help but think about it that way. From Paul L., my guy, who says, we all knew they could do this, right? The red zone loss fumble forced by Delorier, as we were talking about, with 2 minutes left in the third, Syracuse leading 27-14, a huge key play in this game. Delorier has been making plays since he got on the field. Key plays and key times, right? Not bend but don't break. Timely plays, clutch plays. He has been clutch in that linebacker spot since the minute he got on the field. And another freshman, talent getting on the field right away for Fran Brown. LK1 says, what a great win for this team and the program. I'm very happy that they got it done against Clemson due to the fact that nobody gave us a chance. Collins will definitely have his chance for some time. You know, that point spread, you always got to be careful because Vegas wants the money to swing a certain way, and they don't always believe a team is going to win by a certain point spread. They just want the money to go one way or the other. But man, that thing opened at 19, gets down to, whatever for entertainment purposes only service you use, 17.5, 17, 16.5. I'm looking to say, what has Clemson done this year? to merit being a 16-point favorite over anybody, all things considered. Not that they're 16 points better than Syracuse. Just you want the money to go one way or the other. Even from that, they should have been, I don't know, 9 or 10, and even that's stretching it. But as Fran Brown brought it up, a boxing fan, Canelo was a favorite, but some different things happened in that fight, right? Not a big boxing guy, but I knew that was kind of a big deal. Victor says, let's hope Syracuse gets the credit for the win and isn't viewed as a, quote, bad Clemson team. I mean, guys, that's inevitable. There's going to be a lot of what's wrong with Clemson think pieces out there. There is something wrong with Clemson. Something's off. That is not a 1-3 football team on paper, but that's why we play the games. There's too much talent. There's too much experience. The thing that really confuses me about Clemson is they've got everybody back from a team that went to the college football playoff last year. This is not a reset for Clemson. They've got pretty much every key guy back, including their quarterback, a great running back, Peter Woods, all the guys on the defensive line, key secondary players. And they actually added some guys. Clemson has been, and Dabo has been criticized for not using the portal. They actually did that. Like, they checked all the boxes, including their recruiting they always have. There's just something off with that team. It's not always about talent, right? There's other factors that go into this, as we're learning with Syracuse. If anything, with the Dart mantra, Syracuse teams are just going to fight you for 4 quarters. They might not always be as the most talented team on the field, but they will fight you for 4 quarters. But guess what? Even with all the accolades I'm talking about with Clemson, Syracuse was the better team on the field today. They were the more talented team, the more organized team. They executed better. They were more physical. Name me a spot on the field, and Syracuse was better. So that's why this game, this win here today on September 20th, 2025, it's not an upset. It's not. That is not an upset that you saw today. You saw the better team win today. That's what you saw. A couple more from our insiders, including Jake. Says, extremely happy. Defense was awesome most of the day. They did bend but didn't break. I'm gutted for Steve. I'd be shocked if we saw him again this year, but this team is halfway to a bowl game, and I'm happy about that. From Jim B, not that Jim B, who says, as a Syracuse fan who lives in South Carolina, this is special. Congrats to the players and the staff who really came ready to play today, aggressive from whistle to whistle. And TK says the coaching staff was so well prepared. The team executed on both sides of the ball like champions, hoping for any good news for Steve Angeli. So as noted, we opened up the secret voicemail line, which only our Syracuse Sports Insiders know about. Now, more people have the voicemail line. Now, don't you go spreading that around to everybody out there, right? That's like Fight Club, okay? Now that I say that, everybody's going to have the voicemail line, but only the insiders can share in that voicemail line. That's one of the perks of being a Syracuse Sports Insider. So I trust you guys. If you're going to give the secret voicemail line out, only a Syracuse Sports Insider should receive that. That being said, Brad Pitt's going to come in here and we're going to start fighting pretty soon. It's going to be Fight Club. So we're going to start with the man who set the standard on the secret voicemail line, our guy Rockin' Ron down in Florida, but we're going to hear from some other insiders. So without further ado, what did our main guy down in Florida think about this one?
Hey, Brett, Rockin' Ron in Florida. Wow, great game. Well-deserved win. But like I believe, not without a cost. I think Angeli is going to be down with Achilles injury. Hope Collins can take over where Angeli left off. But like I said, what a great game. So the defense, they look pretty good. But my game ball goes to the offensive line. They took care of the top 7 defensive front, probably in all of college football. And the coaches, what a great game call. They called great play after play. Boy, I can't wait. You know what? We are 3-1 now. Destiny's in our own hand. We keep going. We're going to make a bowl. Till then, later.
That was so dramatic at the end there from our guy there. I keep pointing the wrong thing. Where am I? Right here. Rockin' Ron. There he is. My guy. So dramatic at the end. They keep it going. They're going to a bowl. I love it. Well, that's Rock and Ron. He's the voicemail legend, but some other Syracuse Sports Insiders have acquired the secret voicemail line. Here's what they had to say.
Brent, the Orange do it in Clemson. I didn't think it would happen. I thought especially that first half, it felt eerily similar to the game in 2022 where they had a great showing in the first half, but then fell apart in the second. I thought the weather delay would make it even more inevitable, but they did it. I have to eat crow when it comes to Elijah Robinson and his defense, though I'm still concerned that there isn't that strong of a pass rush. Still, I've been harping on him, and he and his defense, his unit proved themselves today. The offense, yet again, looked really, really solid. The fact that we were able to run on those guys is astounding to me. That said, Steve Angeli absolutely tore his Achilles. Unfortunately, we've seen it too many times in sports recently, and when they showed that replay zoomed in on his calf, and I saw the pop on his calf, I knew that was his Achilles. So hopefully he's able to rest up, and we'll have him back next year. And also, Ricky Collins looks a lot better than he did against Colgate against Clemson. So that's a good sign as well. Glad that we have the home game against Duke next week, instead of, going right into, like say a Georgia Tech on the road or a Miami on the road. Glad we have that, for Ricky Collins to get, his head on straight there. Really, really impressed by this team. This was not a game that I thought we would win. I thought we would go 7-5, 8-4, but I never thought that at Clemson would be the one. Really, really proud of this team. Really looking forward to seeing what they're able to do. And shout out, game ball needs to go to Demetrius Samuel Jr. I mean, if we're talking, looking at him 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I guess, against Tennessee to now, wow, what an improvement from him. He played great. They went at him, and he didn't give up and he didn't give in. Really, really happy for him and for this team as a whole. Glad they get to go celebrate, but Duke next week, and that'll be a good one. So talk soon. Thanks, Brett.
Couple of notes there. It did look like an Achilles. I'm not Dr. Axe. I just play one on a podcast, as our voicemailer does, but it did look like that. As we speak here on Saturday night, that's not official, but I think that's the road we're heading down here. Duke beat NC State today, 45-33, so they're going to come to the Dome next week, 2-2. And look, schedule-wise, before the season, everybody marked this as a loss. Yours truly included. I picked Clemson to win this week, though I had the closest score. And I did say in my prediction that if Syracuse could protect Steve Angeli, they had a shot. Some other things developed I wasn't expecting, namely the defense and little razzle-dazzle with the onside kick and some other elements that Syracuse threw into the pot here to win this game, right? But I didn't expect them to win this week, and certainly when you're going through the schedule and what a monster this thing still is, don't get me wrong. Now, SMU lost today. That doesn't look as daunting a road trip as we thought, and Miami's still really good, and there's still some trips on here that Syracuse is really going to have a hard time with, don't get me wrong. And what we're learning about how week-to-week football is, Duke's coming off a win. Duke's got a great quarterback. Sold-out dome. I think the voicemailer, who they didn't say the name, so I'm not sure who that was. Apologies. But if you could pick a situation for Ricky Collins to get his feet on the ground as the starter, that's a little more ideal, right? But did somewhat hold his own against Clemson, a deflated Clemson team at the end there. A couple more from the secret voicemail line.
Brent, I'm thrilled to be a part of Rock and Ron's secret line. This is awesome. Period.
Love it.
In regards to today's game, I know a lot of people are going to talk about Steve's injury, and of course, that's obviously something that us fans are a little bummed about, more than bummed about. But you know what? You still got to tee it up. Still got to line it up, and you still got to go out and win a game, and they did that. And that's, despite their record, there's a lot of talent on that roster across the line, and to go into Death Valley and win a game and to break a losing streak to this team is pretty satisfying, I have to say. And let's get ready for Duke. I think Ricky's going to have be well prepared, be well coached up, and season's not over. There's a lot to play for, and maybe a lot more to play for than we thought. But we'll temper those expectations for now. Let's be happy, I should say, that we won this game, and you're ready for next week.
All well said there. Long way to go, a lot more for this team to do, but to check this as a win, to be halfway to a bowl game, as somebody pointed out there, now you got to make that adjustment at quarterback. This is still a team that's relatively healthy. I mean, it's kind of quality over quantity in a sense. You know, today Tank went down but came back in the game. A couple other bumps and bruises. Chris Thomas was hurt again out there. But your starting quarterback's down, who was leading the country in passing coming in. And as much as the voicemail there, and some of you have faith in Ricky Collins, I loved what I saw from Ricky Collins in camp. I thought he was going to win the job. I've been on the record saying that. He's a different quarterback than Angeli, and the adjustment you have to make on the fly, as the coaches have emphasized, one play away. They've continued to give Ricky reps with the ones, kept him right there, and now that's got to pay off, right? And now you're in a situation where Luke Carney's your backup quarterback, right? Everything shifts around a little bit. I know Jakari Williams is a little more experienced, but when they went to QB3 in the Colgate game, it was Luke Carney who came on the field. So now you're in an interesting spot there. Were you planning on redshirting him, but maybe you can't now, because does he shift into the backup role, or does Jakari become the backup if something, knock on wood, we don't want that to happen certainly, but if something should happen to Ricky as well. One last voicemail.
Hey, Brent, this is Rob W. from the swamps of Jersey. I just want to say it was a fantastic win for the Qs today. I'm going to have a big heaping plate of crow for dinner tonight, because I really didn't think they were going to be able to pull it off. But Coach Fran proved me wrong. Winners get washed, and hopefully he will reap the benefits of that in a larger payday soon to come. Go Orange. Can't wait to be back in the Dome next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Robbie. Make sure you come say hello when you're at the Dome next week. You know what I've helped when you got to eat crow? Little dinosaur barbecue sauce always helps it go down, right? Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. If you got to eat some crow, put a little dinosaur barbecue sauce in there. It'll go right down for you. But yeah, I think that's how a lot of people felt. Even the most dyed-in-the-wool, passionate Syracuse fan was like, I don't know about this one, even though Clemson was down, but they proved they were the better team on the field today. A couple of notes, and we're certainly going to see how things develop this week, but Syracuse ultimately with 433 total yards today, 278 in the air, 155 on the ground. They were 3 of 15 on third down, not so great, so that's got to get better under Collins, but they were certainly doing things on first and second down to overcome that. Only 1 sack on the day, but the pressure, the hurries, getting Klubnik, what was Klubnik today? He was 37 of 60 for 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick all over the field. Adam Randall had a nice day running the ball for Clemson, 16 carries for 130 yards. TJ Moore, 8 catches for 92 yards. But we mentioned Syracuse. I mean, these 3 are as good as it gets. Jonte Cook, 6 catches and 113 yards. Justice Ross Simmons, he dropped a pass today, and I was going to fall out of my chair because he just doesn't drop passes. But 5 catches, 53 yards, great climb the ladder touchdown, and the touchdown that Ricky Collins threw him where the ball just appeared and he snagged it. Darryl Gill getting open. Darryl Gill can get up, right? Got the gloves from Randy Moss last week. Those 3 are as good as it gets. And guys, Dan Villari is holding the line at tight end. I mean, we're past the point where we have to inevitably say Aronde gets it, right? That's over. He's in the NFL. He's been inactive a lot for the Chargers this year. That's a deep tight end room. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. Villari is holding his own. He has put his spin on the tight end position. Chase Simmons was in a tight end today. I don't know if you caught that. And also played defensive end. You know a guy that deserves a shout out to, because I thought of it because we said tight end, converted tight end Jamie Tremble. I don't know if we mentioned him earlier. If we didn't, he absolutely deserves a shout out. Rushing the passer, a couple of great tackles today, is showing he belongs on the defensive side of the ball. As Fran is not afraid to go 2 ways with those guys. Demetrius Samuel Jr., Chase Simmons now, Tremble. He might tap you on the shoulder and put you in anywhere on that field, because Fran just wants the best guys on the field at the best time for them to be there. So shout out to Jamie Tremble, who also is showing out on that defense. You put athletes on there, see what happens, chasing guys around, great on the pass rush. on Syracuse's best tackling day of the year. So enjoy this one. This is a signature, landmark, historic win because they had never won at Death Valley. They had the halftime lead in 2018, lost that game. They had the halftime lead in 2022. A lot of shenanigans in the second half of that game, but they lost that one, right? They have come so close to beating Clemson at Clemson. Of course, they had the epic win when Eric Dungy and company beat Clemson at the Dome. But to finally get that in Fran Brown's first opportunity to do this, by the way, at Clemson, to get that proverbial monkey off your back and know that you can go there and win and that it's just not quite the intimidating atmosphere that it used to be, that's a win in and of itself. But what is it not, guys? It's not an upset. Today was not an upset. Syracuse was the better team out there. They proved it for not only 4 quarters, but a 90-minute plus weather delay and everything that factored into this. But going forward now, you got to make an adjustment at quarterback, and they have to continue to make adjustments in other places on the field. Can you continue to have a pass rush that doesn't collect sacks, but is a factor, right? Still some good quarterbacks they have to face, including next week against Duke, and no one's handing out trophies after this one, but a signature win nonetheless today for the Orange. And we thank you for being a part of our Syracuse football postgame show live tonight, presented by Krause Health, the official healthcare partner of Syracuse Athletics. Thanks to our Syracuse Sports Insiders. As always, I know we'll continue to hear from you guys throughout the weekend. And as we start up another week, getting ready for Duke at the Dome, just a reminder, we do this after every Syracuse football game. We pop on here live on our YouTube channel, Facebook, and X. But please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Syracuse Sports on YouTube, so you can listen to this post-game show on demand when you want, and the Syracuse Sports podcast as well. We've got a couple good things lined up for you on the pod next week, so please subscribe so you get new episodes of Syracuse Sports and our Syracuse football post-game shows presented by Krause Health. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, okay? Syracuse goes down to Death Valley and comes home for the first time with a win, taking down Clemson today, 34-21. This has been Syracuse football postgame live presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Axe. We'll talk to you next time, guys.